We all know that feeling late at night. You left the door open, but you could have swore the doors were already locked and closed. And now, deep within the recesses of your subconscious, you believe that something that shouldn't exist in this reality has entered, bringing with it horrific intentions. The genre of horror is constantly evolving. New ideas spring up left and right like nightmarish weeds sprouting from a once lush field, and analog horror is not exclusive to this whatsoever. There are quite a few entries that have come out recently that are incredibly innovative. There is one, however, that recently really caught my attention, and that was a strange, ominous entry called Obelisk. First off, for those of you who have been on this channel for a while, you know I'm a sucker for any form of horror that weaponizes childhood nostalgia, autophobia, and liminality. There's something about that feeling of utter loneliness, but you're not actually alone. And man, it just gets under my skin. Second, I'm going to use my soapbox here for a second on YouTube and say that I don't necessarily oppose AI art as long as it's done intentionally for the purpose of looking unnerving or whatever. It doesn't bother me at all. But the idea of having hand-drawn and rendered artwork is incredibly useful for this genre. For instance, Dr. Nowhere, to me, is easily the best example of this. His artwork, all handmade, is both beautiful and disturbing, and it works perfectly for this genre. Obelisk invokes the same exact feelings of dread that artists like Dr. Nowhere and Trevor Henderson have. Those strange, anthropomorphic, but not quite human creatures that hide between the pages of fact and fiction. By combining the style and the usage of liminality, creator Lizardmeninc has created a new entry in the genre that is truly special. Oh yeah, I'm loving this already. Without any sort of concrete story to go on, I can give you this for right now. We seem to be in a world where certain doors exist, ones that were clearly never meant to stay open for long. Something or some things got through, creating general unease in the process. We're going to look at these 5 entries so far in the series tonight and try and bring together some sort of story or theory while marveling at the unnerving, uncanny beauty that is Obelisk. We open up the series with the words, "I made a new friend. Do you want to meet him?" accompanied by a discordant keyboard playing over the video. He lives in here. The scene changes to a camcorder filming an old plantation-style door to a closet, and immediately the inner child in me felt red flags left and right. Now, me personally, I've always disliked those style doors and window blinds, as it gives me the feeling of if there's anything behind there, not only can it see me, but this flimsy door won't do anything to stop it. Now, to me, this is a pretty clear yet somewhat indirect use of foreshadowing in this series. You'll see why later. We're then asked by the person filming if we can see our new friend behind the shutters, but there's just empty black space. It isn't until the next moment where we can finally make out a face of some kind behind the panels. The being quickly then retreats into the dark, as we're told. He doesn't like being watched. Admit it, most of us had imaginary friends as kids. It doesn't make you weird nor insane, but in this universe, they aren't normal. After carefully looking around inside the closet for some trace of the creature, nothing. A quick cut and we're taken to a new scene, this time in front of a TV screen reminiscent of Liminal and Saturday morning cartoons. If it hasn't become apparent to you watching this series, I'm starting to believe that we're watching these events through the eyes of a child. Cartoons, imaginary friends hiding in the dark, especially where no one who can properly assess the danger can see them. So now, we have a clear visual of the sheer size of this being, which begs the question, how the hell did it even fit into the closet? And how can it hide itself so well? To be fair, if we're going off it being an imaginary creature, that kind of settles the debate, but we don't know to what extent this theory goes. At least, for now. Our next entry takes us to a hallway where we see yet another massive being opening a door, its face censored out as if we'd be driven mad to look at it. As it slowly creeps across the threshold, we're given a few more still images. One of a door in the middle of nowhere leading into said hallway, and two more of another impossibly large being. What's interesting to me so far is that we've seen possibly 3 distinct beings belonging to some collective of childhood nightmares. The doors in this series are important to note, as I believe this to be incredibly necessary for the story. I mention this because the door adjacent to where the large being entered through is now swung open, as if something just opened it. Whatever these things are, we can now commit to the idea that they have escaped their world and are roaming free in ours. What do they want exactly? I'm not entirely sure, but in the world of analog horror, we'll find out these answers soon enough, even if we don't want to. Probably one of the more chilling lines I've heard in a hot minute in horror. The doors were locked. No but, no affirmation. Just a cruel reminder that even our most simplistic of protective items, like a door for instance, offer no safety whatsoever. Honestly, it already seems like something about this crying isn't natural at all. It doesn't even sound like it's coming from an infant. Whoever this person is, and I think I know who it is, wakes up to go check on this child named Abby, who I can assume to be their own baby. Also, side note, huge round of applause for this really unique form of animation. I love the old click and point style of movement, which adds to the general uneasiness of this series. As we weave through the darkness and the long, endless corridors of this house, we come upon a crib and a door leading into nothing but total abyss. But where's Abby? The crib is empty. This thing, whatever it is right here, takes an impossibly long step towards our camera, and as it fades to black, we're met with footage of the room where we can slowly make out the exact same being coming into view. To me, there's already some clues as to what might be happening in this series. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that the person filming, or from the perspective of this person that we're watching these videos, they might be the same person from earlier, but not a child anymore. And they must barricade their own door in their own house. Something doesn't add up here. If there was danger, why was Abby in a separate room so far away from her own parents? And just as important, what was the point of barricading their own door when clearly the doors were already locked? It leaves 2 possibilities. Whatever this thing is, or whatever these things are, They were able to slip past the doors in some fashion of bending the laws of physics as we know them, or the more likely, more horrifying possibility. The doors were locked, but it was already inside. The entry titled "The House with No Windows" is the longest entry so far in the Obelisk series as it stands, and is both a visual display of the series' potential, in my own opinion, and the most information we can get so far. Our protagonist finds themselves wandering through the middle of nowhere, coming across a desolate house with no point of ingress, save for a small wood panel covering a crawl space into the basement. Foolish but brave, they enter and begin to investigate this house. A house with no windows, no doors, except on the inside. Aside from that, at first glance, the laws of physics do not apply here. Tables, chairs, and other furniture stuck to the ceiling, an art studio with ominous picture displays, endless hallways reminiscent of liminal nightmares from our childhood, and stairs that lead to nothing. We even catch a glimpse of something incredibly important, a set of doors reminiscent of the ones in the second episode, in which the impossibly large creature entered. Speaking of, we also catch a brief glimpse of our new friend, who seems to be monitoring us as we explore. At the end of the video, we get the following segment. So there's a lot to digest in this entry. We're in some sort of altered reality or dreamscape where nothing seems right. The door on the ceiling is impossible to reach by any means, but not for our new friend. Or should I say, old friend? To me, it's pretty clear that whoever's perspective this is from, I believe to be the child in the first episode. As I said earlier, their perspective is now from an adult's point of view, and they are being visited by these beings from their childhood. "I remember your face" is incredibly specific to be saying, as this would have meant we've seen them before. Either this house is their world, a pocket dimension of sorts, or this is all inside our protagonist's head in the form of dream or nightmare, depending on how you look at it. I swear at some point in my childhood, I've had fever dreams like this. The graveyard is a nice touch, which I'll also get to, but we are back on finding Abby amidst the tombstones. We come across the same crib and see caterpillar. Not only that, but a foreboding and familiar shadow looming over it. A quick fade to the next scene, and we find ourselves in the same room that was featured in the entry "In Your Home." Some interesting dialogue takes place here, and laid out, it begins to paint an interesting story.
"You're not how I remember you, Abby. I can't stay here. Why do you keep me here?"
While retreating back into our bedroom, we see the jester figure watching from the doorway, and it isn't until we arrive back into our barricaded room that the door begins to bang with the same eerie mockery of crying from the other side.
"Please, forgive me."
A short entry, but a lot to take away nonetheless. The jester being seems, as I've said before, very keen on taking or watching over Abby, and I could almost interpret the scene of the stains on the carpet as blood, or perhaps something more thought-provoking: tears. As for the relevance of the window looking in, whose perspective is this from? Is it ours? Perhaps maybe the jester being? Are we the prisoner here? Or are the creatures the captives in this world? Even with only 5 episodes, with more on the way, Obelisk is shaping up to be a huge entry in the genre. While there are many theories floating around about it, and as the series is still ongoing, I'm here to throw my hat into the ring and give some insight into what I might think this is about. Now, first off, one thing I mentioned earlier was the graveyard, so I'm going to get this out of the way real quick. While the name Obelisk doesn't necessarily have any relevance to this, it's the root word, obelisk, that does. The term obelisk has several meanings, but its most relevant to the series is that it is a symbol used to mark the deceased. It could be a reach, but I think it has some weight here. That being said, it does branch off into 2 theories that I have so far. These creatures that exist here in the story come from a different world, one accessible through doorways, which can be interpreted in both a metaphorical and literal sense. Everything from the imaginary friend to the jester has a purpose here. The jester, specifically, could be interpreted as a tragedy, a fool, if you will. Sadness, grief, loss, even. The first theory I have is a little more grounded. In the world of Obelisk, everything is awry. Our protagonist, as a child, saw beings that could only be described as imaginary friends, and whether in the waking world or otherwise, they are being haunted in a way by these beings. In their adulthood, they had a child to keep watch over, and in some strange twist, these beings either see Abby as the protagonist, or they need her in some shape or form. While a little more concrete, it really doesn't explain the barricade on the door, the caterpillar, etc. But what if I told you this wasn't a straightforward horror story? The doors in this series are more than just doorways. They're symbolic of the entire theme of the series. The liminal aesthetics, the strange creatures, even Abby herself, they're all symbolic of the death of childhood nostalgia. Remember, liminal means threshold, and it signifies a crossing point between 2 places, whether in life or in the literal sense. These doors could be actual doorways to a parallel world, or perhaps even doorways to the mind, to memory. What if I told you I think that Abby isn't a child? What if I told you that Abby was the child? As in from the first video, as in the one that we're watching through this whole series. What doesn't add up with this first theory I mentioned is simply that there is no Abby. The crib was empty, and in the graveyard sequence, there's only a caterpillar, a larva, a child approaching its metamorphosis. It's symbolic of her transition to adulthood, and these beings remember her. Perhaps their entire existence is meant to stay with her and to take the memories of her childhood. Something traumatic may have happened, and she's trying to hold on to it, and these beings are caught in the midst of it as well. These creatures in Obelisk are from Abby's past and are still following her. My guess is that she's trapped in a dream state where these beings exist in her world, and that's why they associate the crib and the caterpillar with Abby. They believe it's still her. Now, I don't know how much weight this theory holds, but I found it to be an interesting take while watching Obelisk, as there seems to be many analogies to childhood, and the imagery as well definitely paints a picture of childhood lost, now trapped in an endless nightmare. While an ongoing series, there is still a lot of the story left out. The most I can conjure up outside of these 2 theories is that this is not our home, and our very childhood nostalgia is being set upon by creatures that, as it seems right now, are not to be trusted. The doors they came from were never meant to be open, and when they were, the boundary between our memories and the creatures in the story of Obelisk disappeared entirely. I can say that for what I have seen so far of Obelisk, I suggest you go watch it right now, because what I've seen is absolutely amazing. The artistic value, the story, it's all ominous and beautiful and done perfectly. And I was incredibly unnerved by every single episode. I do look forward to see what else Lizardmeninc has in store for us in Obelisk, which is hopefully soon. Let me know down in the comments section below what y'all think about it, and don't forget to do the like and subscribe thing, lock your doors tonight, and stay weird. Love y'all. Good night.